Lesson 1, we are starting our next unit on our Renaissance Masters, where we are looking at our third Renaissance Master. We've already looked at Leonardo, and we've already looked at Raphael, so now we are looking at Michelangelo. So if we could draw your attention to the board, this is our friend for today, Michelangelo. We're going to take a look at his life, what his art was like, and then we're going to specifically focus in on a project where we emulate the kind of art that he would make. So I'm going to ask for someone to read what it says on the board. Lizzie, can you read this here?
Okay.
Yeah.
It says, a famous hermit, Michelangelo is one of the most renowned men of the Renaissance. While his art is quite popular among people, he had a reputation as being short-tempered and working alone.
So he had a reputation of being short-tempered. So what kind of a personality did he have?
Angry.
He was angry. He was fiery. He had a very special relationship with one of the other Renaissance masters that we looked at earlier, where he and Leonardo da Vinci were absolutely not friends. They were actually rivals, you could say. And we'll look further into that as we go along and we learn more about Michelangelo. But for right now, it's content to say he was a lone wolf who didn't have very many friends. And our next slide, Kate, can you read this one, please?
A sculptor at heart. Michelangelo grew up working with stonemasons. He says that this was the start of his art making and how he became a sculptor. He views sculpture as the best form of art.
Awesome. Now, do you guys know what stonemasons are?
Yeah, I do.
A stonemason, you've all seen those stone walls. They have one in Kingston that goes along where the bus stop is, where it's stone walls that don't have any cement holding them together. So stones have to come from somewhere. And so stonemasons are the people who make those stones. So they get them from the quarries, shape them perfectly, and send them off. So Michelangelo grew up with people who carved stones to make brick walls out of. And that's how I learned how to make sculptures. Now, this is an example of one of Michelangelo's sculptures. It's pretty famous. It's called the David. You may have seen it. It's actually at the V&A Museum. We might go there and check it out. But Michelangelo loved making sculptures. Leonardo da Vinci loved making paintings. According to Leonardo da Vinci, sculptors were stupid and painters were the best form of artists. This is one of the reasons why they didn't get along very well. Michelangelo had a lot of things to say about the quality of paint. Awesome. Lizzie, can you read this one, please?
The Sistine Chapel. One of Michelangelo's famous creations was the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. The incredibly detailed painting has over 300 figures.
Excellent. So even though he was a sculptor, he did have a painting technique that was very much his own. Now this is something that we're going to get into a little bit. Here we see Michelangelo's painting. This is an excerpt from the Sistine Chapel. This is a painting done by an artist who's from the medieval period, just before the Renaissance. What kind of differences do you see in the way that this man is painted and the way that Michelangelo chose to paint?
The one on the right looks a lot more realistic than the one.
What makes it look more realistic?
The shading and it's just more detailed in the colour and everything.
So what kind of details can you see in this one that aren't in that one?
Michelangelo considered himself to be a sculptor with paint. So what that means is when we look at these muscles that this woman has here, we can almost see their form and how three-dimensional they are because of the way he used his paint. There is a light and a darkness to them that shows how much they jut out into space, or how much form they have, how much dimension they have. So he used his paint to show that form and sculpt in that way. He used it to render, which is a word that artists use to say that they show something the way it looks in real life. So he rendered his figures by sculpting the paint using highs and low values to show their form.
So we are going to practice rendering something by using value. Value is what we have right here, where we have our mix of tones, where we have a light value, a basic value, and a dark value. where our shadows are shown. These three levels of value are the quintessential building stones of painting and rendering form. So we're going to take a look at how we can use those to our best advantage by using the same technique that Michelangelo did when he was painting forms. First, we're going to practice by painting an orb like this one, where it has a light, medium, and dark value. So here's your paper. You can just hold on to this for a second. We're gonna watch the demonstration going on here. Or for this, I'm gonna just start off drawing a basic circle. If my circle's a little wonky, that's okay. I like to draw a whole lot of circles at one time. And then I just go back and erase the parts I don't like. Erasers are your best drawing tools. The best drawings are made by erasing many things. So don't be afraid if you have to erase something. So I have my orb. And of course my orb is sitting on the ground. So I'm going to give it a ground. As so. My orb is sitting on the ground. Can you pass me one of those paint palettes and the paint bucket brush? Thank you.
Which one?
The whole bucket. Excellent. So this, we're going to talk about what it's like to create values. Obviously, we have our white paint and our dark paint. So we're going to create a medium value by mixing the two together. Now, which of these two paints should I pick up first? Should I mix the white paint into the black paint?
No.
Or the black paint into the white paint?
Mix the black paint into the white paint.
Why do you say that?
Because it's easier to change a colour if you're putting like dark to light.
Yes.
It takes a lot more of the colour. It takes a lot less of the colour, basically, so you're not wasting like tons of white trying to get it. I guess.
That is absolutely true, Lizzie. You want to add your dark color to the light color. Now, paint is made by having a base and pigments suspended in it. So, for example, watercolor is pigment suspended in water. Acrylic paint is pigment suspended in
Is it plastic?
plastic. Acrylic is plastic. Tempera paint is pigment suspended in...
I don't know what tempera is.
Isn't it like egg? What?
It's eggs. So tempera is what Michelangelo would have used. So he would have had pigment suspended in eggs. Now for a white paint, white is a light color. You need less pigment to make a white color. So per drop, there's less pigment going on in white paint. Black paint has a whole lot of pigment going on inside of it. So per drop, there's more black pigments than there are in white paint. So black paint has a lot more power. And with great power comes great responsibility. So I need to use just a little bit of black paint. This is how much I'm going to pick up at a time. This much on the side of my paintbrush. I'm going to mix it in to get a nice medium gray. So here we go. Now I'm going to use my medium gray to create a dark value and a light value. So for my dark value, I have a gray paint that I need to make darker. How would I do that?
Add a little bit more black.
Add a little bit more black. So I'm going to pick up this amount again and mix it on in. And now my paintbrush is in need of a wash. Now for my light gray, I need to make a gray that is lighter. So how would I go about mixing that?
Putting the white in it.
Do I put the white in it?
Put it in the white.
I put the gray in the white. Good job. So I'm going to pick up my white paint. My gray paint has more pigment in it than my white paint, so it has a little bit more power going on. So I want to be gentle with the way I add it to the white. Ooh, that's a little bit too light, so I'm going to pick up some more gray and mix that in there. So I have my medium, my dark, my light, my white, and my black. So for this technique, what you do first is you go ahead and you cover the whole thing in medium gray. All of it is this color. So I'm going to give it a wash where the whole thing is gray. No, I should be sensible and just use a larger paintbrush because this is a large area. So I want to use a large paintbrush to cover the whole thing. Now for this exercise, I'm going to choose what direction the light is coming from. So for my sphere, I'm going to have the light come from here. So the light is coming from here. Where should the shadow be? On this side. So I'm going to fill that part in with my dark gray and just blend it into the gray, the medium gray that I already have down. Since the paint's wet, it blends right in. So you don't really have to worry about mixing a lot of in-between colors. It's a beautiful simplicity and just using a light, a medium, and dark. Excellent. And then if I want to go really dark, sometimes I like to use a little bit of cross-hatching just to make a little texture, a little bit more blending. You can do that if you like. You can make it smooth if that's more your style. Sometimes I like to add just a little bit of black down at the very, very bottom. But again, great power, great responsibility, so I can't use too much black, or that will overpower my painting. Excellent. So now the light is hitting up at the top right-hand corner of my sphere, so that's where my light gray color is going to go. And I'm going to wash that in right over top of my medium gray color. And then I can add the smallest highlight of purely white paint right where I think the light would hit. And blend it on in. Since the paint is nice and wet, that's easy to do. Right on in here. Now in painting, my sphere has turned out a little bit wonky. It doesn't look as nice as my drawing did, but that's okay. You can go ahead and just add more paint on top of it to give it the correct shape that you need it to have. Paint is very forgiving, which is great. If you make a mistake, you can just go ahead and paint on top of it. And so that's the kind of sphere that I'm going to make. So you guys are going to have a chance to practice drawing a sphere. This probably won't take very long, and then we'll get into more complicated figure drawing. So go ahead and start your sphere. Excellent. So there's a paint palette for you. And one for you. Lizzie, something that might help your drawing. So something that's really cool about our bodies is that they're kind of like human compasses. When we're drawing with our wrists, we can usually make circles that are kind of wonky and not totally circular. But shoulders are incredible in that they are designed to make circles. That's how our joints are designed. So when we're drawing, look up at my shoulder. When you're drawing, you want to be, your arm is basically locked in this position. And you're using you look up at my shoulder, not the paper. Yeah. You're basically using your shoulder to create the circle. And then when you make the wonky parts, you can just erase them. That might be something.
I can try it and see if it's any better on it.
Go for it.
So okay.
Yeah, so it comes from right here. Okay. Yeah. And then you're building it up. And that looks good. So like some of these lines can be erased on the inside. Beautiful.
To get it on. I just put in half white and half black.
Oh!
I forgot about it. Oh no, no, I ruined it.
So which color are you mixing right now?
Well, I was meant to be doing the first
one, but then I just thought half and half. I don't know what I was doing.
Okay. So we're going to take our white and add just the tiniest bit of black. Because black has great power and it has great responsibility.
So, white. It's my third try.
There we go. That's a nice medium gray.
Okay.
So this is going to be your light color?
Yeah.
There we go. We're adding the dark color to the light color, just like that.
Wait, do I want to do that one there?
Which one is this one?
For the one in between these two.
Which one are you making?
The one that's like...
The dark one.
Yeah.
Okay, so your medium gray will be your lighter color. Yeah. So you're filling up your whole thing. Dark. Yeah.
How are you?
Alright, so we're filling it up.
Don't know where I want my line. I might. I think I'm gonna do it darker. Okay.
Okay. You might even want to... Let me give you your pencils back. You want to map it out. Okay.
I think I want a different brush. This is too messy.
You got smaller ones. Yeah, big brushes are good for big areas. Small brushes for small areas.
I need tissue. Just like...
That's quite alright.
Oh, my dark color's gone.
You have a very nice watercolor effect going on right here.
Especially my
Mm-hmm. So for yours, you might even benefit from using the straight white paint to create that light area. Beautiful. Yours is a very deep, dark chiaroscuro effect going on where you get real dark. And when you're ready, you'll go up into the light area.
I think I'll
Very Michelangelo-esque.
This is not white.
When you build up layers, putting the white paint on top of more white paint, it will look more white. We want to be building up the layers.
It just looks like a different kind of grey.
Mm-hmm. So you need more layers. So if you get a more fresh white, and put it on top of the layer you have just made. There you go. When we're building up layers, because when they're touching each other, they're more likely to blend. So you want to be blending lighter and lighter. There we go. Alright, now we're going to have to finish these up for today. Excellent. So this is that deep, dark chiaroscuro effect that Michelangelo's had. Kate's is interesting because Kate is much lighter, which is good, but hers has another element of art that is very interesting. It has to do with the kind of brushstroke she made. And it starts with a T. Do you know what element of art I'm talking about?
No.
Texture. The way we can see your brushstrokes in
see
here.
what shape
Yeah. There's a lot of texture going on here. Cézanne was another artist who used a lot of texture like this, who we'll probably look at in a few weeks. But he had these great visible brushstrokes going on that you do also. So we'll set these apart to dry. We'll get a sneak preview of what we're going to look at next week. We're going to use our models and zoom in on muscles that they have similar to Michelangelo. And here's our model. You might be familiar with him. His name is Spider-Man. And so for this project, we're going to be looking specifically at his muscles and rendering them the same way that we would render the sphere that we just did. So looking into his arm, finding the shapes, the highs, and the lows that we see in his arms. We're up here at the top where his light hits. There's a white, but down in here where he has some sort of crease going on, there's a deep shadow in there. So when you come back tomorrow, I hope you come back mentally prepared to spend a lot of time looking at Spider-Man and getting into these lights and shadows that we can see here in his figure. And that is all we have for today.